start the regular port meeting of March 24th, 2020, and it is 6:01. We are having an unusual but soon to become familiar type of meeting on conference calling because of the coronavirus. And so a couple things to add to our hellos and greetings would be that I'd like to announce the conference phone number to anybody out there who might still wanting to be calling in to participate. And the phone number itself is 1-877-820-7831. And the participant code is 421575, and then the pound sign. And that will get you into the meeting. And because we're not able to see who's at the meeting, I would like to call for a roll call, Karen, if you could do that.
I will. Sarah Scanzer, are you present?
Yes, I am.
Jim Burke, are you present?
Present.
Walter Chuck?
Present.
Jeff Lackey?
Present.
Jill Sylvia?
I'm here.
Paula Miranda?
I'm here.
Mark Brown?
I'm here.
Aaron Brett?
Yeah, I'm here.
This is Karen Hewitt. I am here, and I have currently attending for the media and the public Doug Cooper of Hampton Lumber, Angela Neville of Summit Communications, and Jeffrey Johnson, who is a budget committee candidate. Is there anybody else in attendance?
That I know of. And also, if any of the public has a certain agenda item that they'd like to speak to, they would want to announce that now. And if not, we will have the two public comment periods at the beginning and the end of the meeting for the public to weigh in on anything. So does the public have any specific agenda items to speak to this evening? Okay, well, we'll commence to, yes?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say I do not.
Oh, okay. And that's Doug Cooper does not. And I haven't heard anything from anyone else, so I'll assume nobody does. And so to continue on with the meeting, we've been called to order, and are there any changes to the agenda? I think there was an addendum to the agenda, just that in staff reports, Aaron will be talking a little bit more about the storm drain proposal in South Beach. And
Yeah, I just had a staff report that we meant to get into the meeting packet, but I noticed last minute it didn't make it, so it's in there now.
okay, great. And that takes us to public comment. Any public has no general comments or comments? I don't think I hear any. And so that takes us to the consent calendar. We've all had a chance to read through the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
This is Gil. Before a motion, I think I noted a slight typo that we probably should just correct. So it was on item, let's see, this is on page 5, item D, which was the EDA grant. And what it says is a motion was made by Chuck and seconded by Chuck. And I think that should say seconded by Sylvia or Gil. Okay, so I think that's the only minor correction we need to make that I could see.
And that's on the minutes, correct?
That's in the minutes, yeah. So that's just correct in the minutes.
Not really a change to the agenda. And did I hear
No,
someone?
it doesn't change the agenda. It's just a comment in terms of.
Yeah.
Thanks for the correction.
Did I hear someone join the meeting? Okay, I'm hearing things.
Yeah,
So,
it sounded
that's
like somebody joined the meeting.
Yeah, well, I hear no reply. So we'll
Dietmar Kogel joined the meeting.
Oh, okay. Hi,
I had-
Dietmar.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you for
I had my-
attending.
I'm sorry, I missed the name.
Dietmar.
Dietmar Kogel.
Pete, can you spell your last name for me, please?
It's Dietmar with the city.
Oh, Dietmar.
Yeah, Dietmar.
The recognition has been made. So we just started. We're on our consent calendar and had just a tiny little thing to fix. So we're still on the consent calendar. Little error has been fixed. Do we have a motion or any other changes to the consent calendar?
Yeah, this is Walter. I'd move to approve as presented.
A second?
This is Jim. Will second that.
Any more discussion? We'll be doing a roll call vote because we can't see each other, and so Karen will be doing the roll call vote. All those in favor, how do we do the roll call vote?
I'll call your name and you say aye or nay.
Alrighty.
So Sarah, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jim, how do you vote?
Aye.
Walter, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jeff, how do you vote?
Aye.
Gail, how do you vote?
Aye.
So that motion passes 5-0.
Okay. So the consent calendar has been approved. We're on to old business. There have been no items removed from the consent calendar. So we're on accounts paid. Has everyone had a chance to look through the accounts paid? And do we have a motion to approve? Or a discussion item?
This is Walter. I have no discussion.
Do we
This
have...
is Jeff. I move we accept the accounts paid.
Okay, a second?
This is Walter.
This is Jim.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay.
I heard two names.
Karen?
So I have Jeff Lockie moved to accept the accounts paid. Walter Chuck second. Sarah, do you vote aye or nay?
Aye.
Jim, aye or nay?
Aye.
Walter,
This is Walter. Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and Gil.
Aye.
So that motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Next item is the South Beach storm drain repair. And Erin, is this something that you're going to talk about in your? I'm sorry, the budget committee.
The budget
Sorry.
committee.
Jumping right through the agenda a little too quickly. The budget committee, we have some unfinished business on the budget committee as a commission that on our last work session on Wednesday the 18th, we approved Rex Capri as a budget committee member, and we approved Mark Farley, and we approved Dave Smith, and Fred Postlewaite is still on the committee, and we all didn't really know Jeff Johnson that well, and so it was deemed that myself and Gil would reach out to him to learn a little bit more about him, and I'll just say that it was a very pleasant conversation with Jeff at my end, and I saw no problems with him joining in on the budget committee. And Gil, what have you to say?
Yes, Sarah, same thing here. I had a great conversation with Jeff, I think he meets the criteria we discussed. So I have no reservations or any problems with Jeff.
Okay. So is this just an agreement, a consensus that we will appoint Jeff to the budget committee, or do we need to make a motion?
It would be good to make a motion to appoint him and assign the term.
Correct. That's another thing we need to discuss, is that we had decided last month or last meeting that Fred Postlewaite is in until 2022 as a budget committee person, and we agreed that Mark Farley and Rex Capri would be 2023, and that Dave Smith would be 2023. And so, is that right, Karen?
No, Dave Smith was 2022.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So Dave Smith is 2022. We can go either way with Jeff on 2022 or 2023. Does anyone have something to propose to just decide which year we want to assign to Jeff? We've got 3 and 2. So it kind of looks like 2022 would be better. Really a wash. Does anyone have a preference?
I do not. This is Jim.
Yeah. Okay, well, no one, I'll just, yes? Did someone say
This is
something?
Jeff. No preference. If you just want to make it 2022.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I guess we would entertain an motion with 2022 as Jeff's end date.
This is Jeff. I move that we accept as a budget committee member Jeff Johnson through 2022.
Any discussion or, I'm sorry, a second?
I'll second that. This is Gil.
Okay. Karen?
Okay, so Jeff Lackey made a motion to appoint Jeffrey Johnson to the Budget Committee through 2022, was seconded by Gil Sylvia. Sarah Sandler, do you vote aye or nay?
Aye.
Jim, how do you vote?
Aye.
Walter, how do you vote?
Walter, aye.
Jeff Lackey, how do you vote?
Aye.
Gil, how do you vote?
Aye.
So the motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you for that. So along with the Budget Committee, Mark, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about dates of Budget Committee hearings. There are some dates further into our calendar of future considerations, or if there's more you want to speak to about the Budget Committee at this time.
The revenue side of things right now are really up in the air given the emergency declarations. But we do in fact need to get that set. I would suggest sometime in mid-April that we have our first hearing. Actually, I have a question. Do we know when the general manager review will be done so we could finalize that salary as well? There's no use having the hearing. Well, the board can change the budget at their final hearing as well. So, but still, it'd be nice to know that going into it. But in mid-April, then we could do an end of April and have it set up before June that way.
I believe we had talked about May being a month to review the general manager, but that could be. Is that your anniversary for a year, Paula? In May.
Yeah, that will be May 5th. Is my starting date.
Right. So having something in mid-April as a starting review for the manager salary, I think would be good, but we don't want to also double up on too many meetings in 1 month. So what say the commissioners? Anything to discuss about that?
This is Paula. Just to add something, I know we kind of the earlier for the budget meeting the better. However, because what we've been going through, and as Mark said it himself, not knowing our revenue situation because of some of the closures, I think it would be nice to maybe do it like in the beginning of May, the first budget meeting, because at that point we pass a lot of these closures, or at least we hope we are, and have a better idea on how to budget some of the revenues in relation to some of the projects we have. As to my review, that's really entirely up to you.
Yeah. What do you think, Walter?
Well, if they need time to do the budget, we should probably do Paula's before then, and maybe switch around the dates we're talking about.
That the Paula's review would be started in the middle of May, and then the budget more in the middle of April, and the budget more in beginning of May.
Yeah. Does that make it easier on staff, Mark or Paula?
Yes, that will make it much easier.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, let's make it easy on you folks.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And since we have our commission meeting at the end of April, what we could do is double up. We could do the regular meeting, or maybe do it 1 hour early. I don't know how much time you would need for my review, but that way you only. I don't know if it's going to be a trip or a phone call, but we can finish one and go into the other.
Right.
Just a suggestion. Doesn't
Yeah, that would work for me.
That works
Yeah,
for me.
and again, Walter is remind me of we have a formal. All of us commissioners were involved with the 6-month review, which was really a kind of review ourselves and just see who we all were with a basically finally filled new commission and a new manager. It was more of a get-together than a review. So do we fill out that same type of paperwork, and we would get that sent to us by Karen, and then just discuss that before the April regular meeting? Is that what we're thinking?
If we want to follow the same process, we would just basically put some of the priorities that we came up with for next year, and put those as some of the goals for Paula's goals for next year, and redo the sheet a little bit. You would pick somebody to circulate the sheets and be the collector, and then tally the scores, and then get those out to Paula and the rest of the commission 4 or 5 days before the meeting, and then go from there.
Right, and I recall that you were really good at that.
Yeah, but we need to get some new blood involved too. No.
True.
If you, yeah, I can do it, Sarah. But I would like to have, maybe someone who was willing to sit down with me after it goes over, and so they could take over and do that and do it next year.
I can do that. This is Jim.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Not that I don't want to do it. I just think we need to cross-pollination.
I agree.
Right. I think so too. So, well, that's good. Thanks for stepping up, Jim, and thanks for walking us through that again, Walter. So
My pleasure.
It sounds like we're pretty set on how to tackle the general manager's review, and it's really up in the air about finances. There's no denying that. So if this helps save some brain cells on the staff, we're happy to make all of these meetings at the times that we talked about. And so I think we're set on that. It would just be how soon before the regular meeting we want to schedule. And Walter, as you learn more, or even, I don't know if you want Jim to work with you a little bit on the goal setting, that the two of you could come up with the final when we want to meet, would also be great. So that is, yes.
So in that case, Sarah, that would be typically that's done in executive session. So
right.
So we can set that up for. Do you think 1 hour is sufficient? Should we do that at 5 o'clock, or do you need more time?
I would think that we'll have all looked through our paperwork and have it filled out, and Walter will have collected things and tallied them, correct, Walter?
That is correct.
And so an hour should be plenty. That's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Jim?
I think it's appropriate. An hour should be appropriate amount of time for that.
Yeah. We'll just make sure to be either on the phone or in person timely. It is a smaller group of people because it would be in executive session, it would be the press if they wanted to be there, Karen, the commissioners, and Paula. So I don't know if that adds up to 10 or things might have changed by then.
Yeah, we could do that with at the commission room and just see it far apart. We certainly can make it happen since there are only 5 of you and 2 of us, and
Right. I think that's the type of meeting
that would be very difficult to do it over.
So that would be an executive session at 5 p.m. on April 28th, prior to the regular meeting, correct? Okay.
Correct.
So as to the budget, sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, I just, I'm glad that business is taken care of, and Paula or Mark, if we want to stick with this agenda item and have more to talk about the budget, or not really, because it's not a budget committee meeting, that we want to move on the agenda, or do you have more to say?
I guess we just need to pick a date in May when you want to do the budget meeting.
Well,
is there any preference?
I have absolutely none.
Our schedules are a little more freed up than they used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Could we send a doodle poll out since the budget committee isn't on the phone?
Yeah, let's do that. Maybe in the morning, a morning of doodle poll days.
Okay. We can do that.
That would help a lot.
All right, we'll come up with a date and send that your way, and let the public know as well.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a plan. And then we will move on the agenda in old business to the South Beach storm drain repair. And again, Aaron, I didn't know if you wanted to move this to your staff report or keep it where it is, because we did have the addendum, I believe, on the South Beach drain money.
Yeah, I think right here would be good for me. A couple of reasons. One of them, you'll notice so on the agenda, the the actual price that's listed on the agenda from the quote from Earthworks Excavation, that's just for an alt that was added on in case it's necessary. So that's not the actual price that they have in their proposal, which is in your meeting packet. Actually, no, it's in my staff report that came out as the addendum. So the reason why this is in here like this is because in order to be able to do this, we would have to transfer some funds around. So I don't know if you want me to go into the particulars of the project before you transfer the funds around. I can go into the overall. So this is the big sinkhole that we've been talking about for a long time over there near the in-ground fuel tank in South Beach at the north end, where there's the traffic circle next to the north restrooms. That sinkhole continues to grow, and it's really important that we get this fixed because it's starting to erode some material from underneath where you can see the curb settling alongside the road. And the closer that settling gets to the fuel tank, the more risk we have of the fuel tank shifting. And then as the fuel tank shifts, the fuel lines themselves can rupture, and then we have a big fuel leak over there again. So it's really necessary that we get this thing fixed. We've had a couple of rounds of solicitations. I put out for a second round because I felt like my criteria in the first round was a little bit too specific. So I made it a bit more general to allow for more proposals to be considered. We got 5 proposals in this round. Three of us scored the 5 proposals, and you can see the scores summarized on page 67. It was our recommendation that we go with Earthworks Excavation's proposal, which is included there on the previous pages. It's listed. They had the most complete proposal out of everybody, the best detail. So, in my estimation, that equated to a lesser chance of having errors and then cost overruns that are unforeseen. They recommended a method of HDPE slip liner using the snap together type pipe that the city has used to do some repairs as well. It's a good method. All the other proposers put forth good proposals as well. It's just this one came out on top because it was, I think, the best balance based on the scoring criteria of the proposal and the cost. And it came out to be $255,017 with an alt if necessary, if they find more crushed pipe as they go down, which I think it's not terribly likely, but possible. And that alt is $42,744. If we complete the project, it's going to extend the life of that drain pipe significantly. We previously had the idea that the entire pipe network would be in danger of catastrophic failure. We've had a scope run through that pipe, and everything that was not in the tidally affected area is in really good condition, and I would say has at least another 10 to 15 years or so left in it before we would have to consider touching it for repairs or replacement. So if we complete this thing, it's definitely going to extend the service life of that into the drain network, and will fix a lot of our problems for years to come, I think. So it'd be my recommendation we go with this, but if we go with this, it's obviously going to require the budget transfer resolution, which Mark Brown can talk about, which is also on the agenda there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can, and be able to talk about this as much as we can.
Okay, does anyone have questions for Aaron?
So Aaron, this is Gil. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I appreciate the thoroughness of going out the second time and really looking at the methods and the money being spent and looking at the life and the long range implications. I appreciate all that.
Yeah, so this is Gil. So yes, I also appreciate that. But I did have a question about the scoring, which was interesting. 'Cause I was just looking at the evaluators and the scoring, and if I'm reading this right, and you tell me if I'm not, that actually the DBA Earthworks, right, is that the contractor you're awarding it to, scored very closely, if even slightly less than, again, I don't know if that's Mocon, or how you pronounce it, Mocon. It's one of the bidders. So I didn't know whether you had some other criteria you're using to make the final decision for awarding the contract.
Yeah, I actually talked with him about that this morning. So the scores, if you look at the scores individually, they weren't because it was based on, you could see how the points available stack up there. The three scores, you sort of used a different, if you look at number 2, for example, all of those scores are lower across the board than the other two evaluators. And so each of the three evaluators, it's that question of, do I start low and begin moving the scores up as I read the proposals and find things that I agree with? Or do I start at a complete score of 100 and then back it down as I disagree with things? And I think it came out to be that the points were different. The trends of each of them were very similar, though. And so if you look at it like three individual opinions that came out to be the Earthworks, for two of them were the first choice. For one of them was the second choice. And that, coupled with the fact that they were just around $100,000 less expensive than Mocon, is the way that I came up with that recommendation. So
I got it. I didn't realize they were $100,000 lesser. Okay, thank you.
It depends on whether that alt is necessary, but it's between, it's around 50 to 100. I think Mocon was $635,000, and Earthworks is $255 plus a possible 42.
Okay, all right. That's what I needed to know. Thank you, Aaron.
Aaron, this is Walter.
Yeah.
This has come to us quite a few times. What was the initial estimates on that? I mean, I know they were ballparks, but this one's quite a bit higher than I think than you were guessing before, correct?
Yeah, so I think that before, when I looked at it with a couple of contractors, I looked at the just where that pothole is, right? Just where the pothole is, and reflecting back on how all the conversations went that I had with people, we focused on fixing that thing. And so the next step was getting the pipe scope to see what we were looking at. We scoped the pipe and we found a couple of holes in it uphill from where that pothole is. So at that point, I was like, well, we need to go ahead and fix those holes as well if we're already getting in there. One of the reasons being, I think it's going to be, so we're sleeving this pipe from the outfall. If we sleeve it and then stop right there at the lower end, it's going to be really difficult for us to sleeve the rest of it later on. So it's in my opinion, the most cost-effective way to deal with this is to get all of those holes sleeved at this time. And so the scope of the job looked different after we got a little bit better information on what we were looking at than it was back originally, when we were kind of, all right, well, what are we going to be dealing with? And we thought it was going to be, I think, someplace around, 35 or maybe it was 50, someplace in there. But anyway, that's what that is.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, that number was pretty big compared to the first one. But thanks for the thoroughness, Aaron. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Aaron, this is Sarah. And given the fact you were able to scope it and know that the rest of it was in good shape, that this, in some ways, to me, sounds like a cheaper fix because we know how far to go in and fix it right. So I think that we're getting a thorough job now that we know exactly where it's bad. So I'm
I agree. I think this is one of those examples of what, as time goes on and you start to dig into a project a little bit more, you get better information on it, and then so your cost figures get more accurate. And yeah, I thought this was the best way to go about it. I appreciate you guys' words of kindness there.
Yeah. So this was, I'm reading off of the addendum, is a recommendation for a motion. Do we just want to work off of that and take care of this motion where we're at on the agenda then?
I think we should probably ask Mark what he thinks, whether we need to go in and do the resolution first to set the funds up for this, and then approve. You have to ask Mark about that.
As long as we don't spend the funds, it's not important which goes first.
Okay. So does everyone have the addendum, which is basically part of Aaron's staff report?
Yes.
No page number on it. And there's a recommendation for a motion there. Is anyone entertaining a motion?
This is Karen. Aaron, did you need to change the amount on that recommendation?
No, it's correct. So in that recommended motion, I say contract with Earthworks Excavation in amount not to exceed $255,017, and in addition authorizes alt one if necessary in the amount of $42,744. I was just pointing out that on the agenda, it lists Earthworks Excavation contract in the amount of $42,744.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, but the addendum does have the right numbers, so. Does anyone want to entertain a motion on that?
This is Jeff. I can. Maybe we can go ahead and do the motion first, see if it passes before we do the resolution. I don't know what people think about that. But I would like to make a motion.
Yeah. So, good.
So I make a motion to author. Go ahead.
Yep. I'm talking over you, Jeff. Go ahead on your motion.
I make a motion to authorize the GM to enter into a contract with Earthworks Excavation in an amount not to exceed $255,017, and in addition authorizes alt one if necessary in the amount of $42,744 for the purpose of repairing the North Stormwater outfall in South Beach.
This is Jim. I will second that motion. This is Jim. I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yeah, this is Walter.
Sure.
I just want to point.
Yes.
This is Walter. I want to point something out that that this is a big outlay in uncertain times that was not budgeted for or in a strategic business plan, and I wholeheartedly support that. But I think we need to also point that out, that this is one of those things that comes up that isn't on the strategic business plan, that we need to make sure that we acknowledge that those things, everything that comes up isn't on the business plan.
Right. Well noted.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, Walter. But something that will be fixed. So do we want to continue on then, Karen?
With the vote? So there was a motion by Jeff Lackey and seconded by Jim Burke as worded in the staff report. Sarah, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jim, how do you vote?
Aye.
Walter, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jeff Lackey, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Gil, how do you vote?
Aye.
So the motion passes 5-0.
Okay, well, thank you for that, everybody. And I guess field business on Section D is completely dealt with, the earthworks part of the excavation contract and the resolution authorizing the transfer of appropriated funds. We're on to staff reports. Director of Finance and Business Services.
Actually, you still need to get the resolution for the
Oh.
transfer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That one's not approved yet.
Right. And that's on page
61.
61. getting there. I think I'm better with stacks of paper than a computer. Okay, 61, correct. Port of Newport Resolution number 2020-05. So does somebody want to bring forth this resolution?
Yeah, this is Walter. I move that we approve Resolution 220-05, a resolution authorizing transfer of appropriated funds within the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget.
Second?
I'll second that. That's Gil.
Okay. All those in favor, Karen?
So Walter Chuck made a motion to approve Resolution 2020-05 as named on the document, and that was seconded by Gil Sylvia. Sarah Scanzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jim Burke, how do you vote?
Aye.
Walter Chuck, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jeff Lackey, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Gil Sylvia, how do you vote?
Aye.
So that motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Now we have completed item D on old business, the resolution and the earthworks excavation contract with the proper numbers. And now we're on to section 6, staff reports. Director of Finance and Business Services, Mark.
Good evening. You'll find the financial reports starting on page 9. While you're looking for that, I'll give you a little update on where we're at. Banking-wise, converting. We have this afternoon received the signature cards from First Interstate Bank. I'll be distributing those via email this afternoon, and we can all sign, rescan, and send it back into us. And then we'll submit those to First Interstate Bank. Once that is completed, we'll get actually a bank account number from them. So it's moving forward. And we're doing everything pretty much electronically with them at this point. The next item is LGIF. I will be submitting the final paperwork tomorrow morning, and we'll get that set up. I'm just sort of watching the markets. I saw they went up big today, but we'll continue to watch them to figure out the right timing to make sure we maximize our return on those funds as we transfer them. And then I've prepared and have Paula reviewing a request for a proposal for a voice over IP system. Return on that would be return on investment would be about 6 to 8 months. Would be saving between $4,000 and $6,000 a year. We're spending about $9,000 to $10,000 a year on our current voice systems, and a voice over IP system. One proposal I got showed us spending about $6,000 in 3 years. That includes all calling plans. So it'd be a significant savings for the port. So we're working on that as well, just trying to time it so we don't overload everyone. Okay, so we'll move right into the financial reports if everyone is ready. So we'll start with cash flow. You'll note it was through the end of February, we have a nice positive cash flow, and I can't say it's going to guarantee it's going to stay that way, given our current situation and what's happening, because we are not able to continue reserving short-term Long term, we will continue. For the fiscal month of February, we actually had a negative cash flow for the fiscal month. Again, we're just starting what would typically be our busy time of year. April isn't our busy, but May is when I anticipate it to really start picking up. It just all depends on how long we have to stay in isolation, which I support, by the way, to protect the elderly and anyone else that should be protected. So we'll move on to the balance sheet if there's no questions there. I'd like you to note on the balance sheet that there are some changes in that. We've tried to give you a more transparent view of what can be spent and what cannot be spent. So if you look on page 12, under equity, you're going to see an account 13030, FB assigned facility improvements. That is money that we've received for axle fees, and it's being set aside for infrastructure projects such as facility relaying of pavement. So, and that's how we're trying to follow what GAAP says we're supposed to do. And as we move forward, you're going to see three type of accounts. One is going to be assigned, one is going to be restricted, and one is going to be committed. Restricted means we have an agreement that doesn't allow us to spend the money except on something very specific. A good example of that when we get to NOAA is the $1.7 million that we have to keep in reserve for a bond payment. A committed means that the commission has decided and declared that this money is set aside for this purpose. Those are committed funds. So you'll start seeing that to reflect the actions of staff, the actions of commission, and any legal restrictions we might have. I just want to make sure you knew that. On income statements, you'll notice that in the budgeted section, we no longer have unappropriated ending fund balance on the income statements. That's actually a balance sheet item, and it's not even a budgeted item, which is the reason we removed it. It shows something that shouldn't be there. So generally on the income statements, we're in good shape. Because of our current stay in place, I project that South Beach will not hit its income targets, but the expenses are so much lower than what we anticipated. The bottom line, we should be fine. The other one I'm watching closely is NOAA. So we have as a benefit an HSA plan, which saves our employees from having to pay a large deductible. It covers most of that $5,000. What it does do, however, port-wide, so if you combine South Beach, Commercial Marina, NOAA, International Terminal, the port has a liability because of that HSA account of about $66,000 to $68,000 a year. And that's what's happened in personal services in NOAA. There was a claim made against it. It cost the port had to pay that claim. We should be fine in personal services, but I'm watching it closely to make sure that we don't go over budget in that one area. That's the only thing I'm watching on the income statements. The NOAA fund balance sheet, you will see the restricted accounts on there for the bond payment and a committed on there for a fund that was set up in January for the improvements, set aside for the improvements for the NOAA Pier properties, a $2 million committed funds there. Then accounts receivable, you'll note the improvement there on how we're doing in accounts receivable. The 90-plus days dropped dramatically. Again, we don't know what's going to happen coming up based on what's happening to the economy. One of the things that we have done, however, is we're now sending out invoices monthly. It used to be every week. It used to be all we did was send out statements, which people found confusing. I think sending out the invoices, we'll see a quicker turnaround in receiving payments. We were set at the end of this month to do some auctions. We're working with Pete to see if we can delay those in light of the current executive orders. And are there any questions? I did that rather quickly.
Yes, this is Jeff.
Yes, Jeff.
You pointed out, where was that? Pointed out page 12, the 13030 FB assigned, $36,000.
Yes.
You pointed out on page 23, the committed and the restricted for NOAA.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other line items like that for monies that are set aside?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, this is so you actually created a fund, which was NOAA Capital Reserve, that I found that had not been set up. And this is a way to set up that fund. And I checked with a Department of Revenue to verify. That's a legal way to do it without setting up a separate fund or a separate organization. And if the commission decided that they wanted to spend monies from this, it's easily transferable and takes my staff about 5 minutes to take care of it. With the way we were doing it before, it would take 40 minutes to figure out how to do it, even though they had experience doing it.
Okay.
So that's
all right.
Another reason we did this.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Mark? So the recreational marina occupancy report?
Yes. The RV park, to put it, the occupancy is down versus previous years, and we're asking ourselves the question why. Could it be just one of those years? Right now, I would say it's due to the stay-at-home order, but it is down overall. Could it be our fees have reached that point that we're overcharging? That's a possibility too. We don't have answers. I'm awaiting a report from the Chamber of Commerce that compares. It doesn't really compare. It shows what the occupancy rates of a few other RV parks are, and we don't know what whose parks they are. And I want to compare our occupancy to their occupancy before presenting what I believe is going on. Once I know those numbers, I can give you a more accurate description. The marina has stayed fairly constant, even with the Lincoln County order. We have had very few cancellations at the marina, so it's staying constant. The dry camp was not busy during the Seafood and Wine Festival this year, and the annex, again, we're down versus last year. And again, until I get that report, I won't have many answers. I had requested it, and I will request it again.
All right, every year is different, I guess, is part of the deal. So,
Yeah.
No, any more questions or comments to Mark?
And I did look historically, and it's about 6 years ago, they had this same issue where it dropped fairly dramatically. So I'll be seeing if there's trends, if I can go back even farther.
I see. Makes sense. Okay, well, we're definitely heading into some leaner times with the closing of the ramps in the county and such, and the customers are learning the new rules, and I know there's a lot of questions and staff from people I've talked to that have integrated with staff in South Beach are very pleased that everybody knows what they're talking about and is very kind and helpful to them to understand that they really can't launch their boat and go fishing and such. And so our staff is handling the bad news situation well and being kind about it. So that's always good to know. And so on to the Director of Operations report.
Thank you. Yeah, as I kind of alluded in the opening paragraph, much of what I wrote here, this was from the 17th, and so a lot of it's dated already because things have changed since even I wrote this. But you know, we've been really consumed, or a lot of our time's been consumed with changing situations based on this virus outbreak and making changes operationally or just communicating with people to try and determine what kind of changes need to be made or can be made or can't be, et cetera. So obviously, you know, we've shut the boat ramp down over in South Beach. We shut down the north and south restrooms. We have a portion of the central restrooms still open. We're still allowing emergency response to use the boat ramp and some limited commercial. I mean, we don't get much commercial activity on the boat ramp, and it's not supposed to be. It's not really designed that way, designed for that anyway. So, but we do get a little bit, so we're allowing that to continue. I think for the Friday, we had, you know, someplace in the neighborhood, I would say someplace around about 60 boats out, maybe 50, something like that. Saturday, there was a little bit less than that. And Sunday, also about the same as it started to taper off from the weekend's activity. Obviously, that'll look different moving ahead as long as we got the boat ramp closed off. But on the commercial side, they've been really busy. Last week, there was still some crab coming in. As I understand, they've kind of, you know, the plants have pretty much shut that off just about, or have plans to here very shortly. From the independent buyers, I understand that some of the market has started to open back up over in China. So they're still getting some crab, and they're able to sell it. They have a market for it, and it's starting to ease a little bit over there. So other than that, the bulk of the activity has been based around people bringing gear back, and there's been a lot of that. A lot of pots coming in at the hoist dock, and then now also at the terminal too, that are going into storage or being hauled off. Number of boats are switching back to shrimp gear, and the terminal's been busy dealing with that, and will continue as the Alaska fleet comes back, and they start changing their decks around and getting ready for the hake season. And so we talked about the stormwater, the sewer outfall, Port Dock 5 project. We had a conference call with EDA, and they did a really good job of explaining to us kind of what they're going to be expecting for us to perform on this grant properly. Set Mark and our minds at ease, because they're very well organized as far as checklists that we need to complete and things like that. So I'd hope to be able to get a contract in this meeting packet for construction management services, but we need to meet a few benchmarks before we can do that with the EDA. And all of our bid documents will be reviewed by the EDA before they come to you guys. so that we can make sure that we don't wind up bidding a job or awarding a contract that all of a sudden we find out after the fact that, oh, you can't get reimbursed for this because you didn't meet X, Y, and Z criteria. So they're gonna sign off on all of these documents prior to us ever releasing them. So it slows things down a little bit, but it definitely makes me a little bit more comfortable. First part is doing the site certification. I got in touch with Pete last week and then this week. So there's two parts to that. We need to have an engineer stamp on it. The engineer that did the design work. We got that done. They certify that we have enough space to be able to build this thing, and that it's that we own they weigh in on whether or not we have authority to be able to build there, and then they want me to get our lawyer to sign off on another site certification that we have any easements in place and title deeds and everything to the property where we want to do the project. Pete already has the documents. I sent them to him. He is back in the U.S. now, and he said he should be able to review this stuff tomorrow. So once we get that done, the site certification is complete, and then we can start moving on contract documents for construction management. I'll work with Paula and to determine when is best to present those documents. It might be in our best interest to, if it's possible, to get that done at one of these upcoming meetings. Depending on how, I don't really know how that's going to work for everybody's schedules, but if not, we'll have to wait. But in any case, that's something that we have coming up here. We're looking to get those documents out there and get that construction management contract awarded, because they will help finish the bid documents for the bidding. So that's where the Port Dock 5 project is currently. We've already met a number of requirements of theirs, so we're moving right along. Attended a telephone conference with the EDA, or the Cascade West Economic Development District, about the comprehensive economic development plan, and that went well. Feasibility study, I talked to the Army Corps. They have assigned the economist and the environmental specialist to the project, and the next part will be making the federal interest determination. They feel like they're in a good position to do that. In this next month, I should be talking more with them about the geotech issues and sampling that's going to need to take place and things like that. Because if we go forward with the feasibility study, there'll be a fund match involved there. What he described to me is that if we do, for example, some of the geotech sampling before the feasibility study portion, it can't be applied to our fund match, but it will make the pie smaller. So, in other words, it's not going to make the portion of the pie for which we're responsible smaller. It'll make the overall pie smaller, if that makes any sense. But we can talk about that when we can cross that bridge when we get there. Yeah, we had some medical situations with supervisors. It's been tough. Jim Durkee over at NOAA and Chris Urbach in South Beach have had some challenges here lately, so we've been doing our best to get through it. And they're back on the job right now, but both of them in limited capacity. So we're doing our best. Overall, with this COVID-19 situation, we got an email from the Midwater Trawlers. I think it was today, as a matter of fact. Just the general questions the public's asking us: are you going to stay open? Are you, can we count on you to be there when we need work done on the boats or to switch gear and things like that? Basically, the way I would describe it is that that work is essential, and we're going to do it to the best of our ability as long as we can. However, I think when everybody gets so wrapped up in what the government's definition of essential is, that they kind of forget that if the virus passes through, we are subject to it as part of the population, just like anyone. We may be essential, but the virus doesn't care. So if a percentage of the population gets affected by being sick, you can expect that the port employees to a similar degree, depending on where that exposure is and how it occurs and whether there's any outlying factors, that we're going to be very similar to the overall population. So basically what I would say is that we are going to be open. However, if I was on the receiving end of services and I knew I had essential work that needed to get done, I would do my best to get it in early when I know everybody's doing well. if you basically make hay while the sun's shining, as the saying goes. Get the work done quickly, as early as you can, because the more you delay it, you never know. We might wind up with a significant portion of a workforce who's homesick. And in that case, the reality of that situation is that we're part of it. I mean, I saw in the news today that 7% of the New York Police Department called in sick today. And that's the way you can expect that type of thing to happen. Because they're police officers doesn't mean that they don't get sick or that they're not affected by it, them and their families. It's going to happen to everyone if that comes to pass. And so the public needs to understand that we may experience a slowdown in services. However, we are going to do our level best to prevent that. But we can't, if we got one guy left or whatever who's not sick, we can't work 24/7. There's no way. So the trick is to identify what the essential services are, draw back the ones that aren't, and then manage the workforce that we have as much as we can, and keep people aware if we experience shortages, and that's what our plan is. Aside from the social distancing measures, and we put out a social distancing plan by way of memo from Paula to employees yesterday evening. And it's nothing significantly different than what we've been doing, but we did shut down some restroom facilities. We didn't shut down the mortgage holders' restrooms, but that's where we're at. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you, Aaron. That was very informative.
Yeah, this is Gil. So I have a couple questions, Aaron. Sorry. Oh, Sarah, go ahead. Did you have a question first?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So two questions. So one is on the closure of the ramp. So was that a decision by the port, independent, or was that of the state, or was that a decision by the state or the governor's office to close all recreational fishing ramps on the coast?
I can answer that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
We obviously have been following, any orders from the governor or local areas, and I've been on the phone a lot, and I've been reading a lot of information that has come through. And one of them, obviously, the recent order from the governor, which talks about essential businesses can be open. I mean, although it lists a laundry list, she has a laundry list of business that should close. It does talk about recreational not being an essential business. And then I also have been on the phone with the mayor and the city administrator to go over, some of their concern as well, because one thing that has happened is people start getting bored at home, and a whole bunch of people start coming to the coast. And believe me, I live here in Nye Beach, and this place was full. I tried to walk my dog. I turned right around because there were so many people. So they're really concerned about, the number of people coming just to the coast just because they're bored. So they decided to also, along with the county, put together an order to basically shut down the city. And because they're mostly concerned about the tourists, we talk about how we should work with the RV park and the recreational boating, and they ask obviously if we can, keep that, especially on the RV park. Originally, I was going to do a 12-day minimum, but they decided to do a 30 days, so we changed that to a 30-day minimum to avoid just the people wandering around trying to get out of their houses, but still providing housing for the people there more long term. And by closing our ramp, we avoid that tourists that just come here and constantly using, because most of our mortgage users are already at the marina. They have slips, and we can't really tell them what to do. We don't have the time and capacity to do that. However, we just decided that it would be easier to avoid all the tourists by closing the ramp. We're still leaving that open for essential business and emergency situations as well.
So then two follow-up questions. Then the decision to open the ramp would be a decision by the port if I'm hearing correctly, in consultation with the city and state government. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. Yeah, we made that decision to close it. The RV park not so much, because they kind of made that decision. So with that, we are following the city orders. Right now, they have that as of closed until April 30th. So we're following that. With the ramp, it's more on us because we're trying to keep up with the orders from both the governor and the wish of the city also to keep the tourists away at this point in time, keep people home and keep the city safe, in other words. So we'll try.
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll try to see what's going on with, and we'll keep talking to them. I've been talking to a lot of people, and we're also talking to other ports through emails. I've been actually getting a lot of emails from other ports, and we're also trying to figure out what others are doing and what makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then quickly, does the port bear any responsibility in terms of the behavior of vessels that operate off your docks? For example, are charter boats still operating who might be in violation of technical rules about personal space, et cetera, or other operations? So, and you just mentioned about vessels, recreational vessels that are at the dock that are owned by private individuals. So any responsibility in terms of the port? Go ahead.
The way I look at it is we have done our part. We're not allowing, vessels to come in and out from the ramp. As far as what people do out there, we don't have that capacity. We don't have employees that are out there managing who comes in and out. So as far as I'm concerned, we are not responsible what people do on their own, especially a charter boat. They should know better at this point. But I don't see that as our responsibility at this point.
Paula, the other thing is we weren't given that authority by law, so we can't do it.
Right.
And the county has weighed in along with the city on these closures and the 30 days of the RV park and such. So it's city and county.
Correct. And so if the city, tell people to not do it, they have the rights to do that. We don't. At this point, as Mark indicated, we just have not been given authority to police people. We told them it's closed. Now, if they go and do it on their own, it's not on us. We've done what we could do it.
Okay. So that answers my question in terms of any legal liability. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Sarah, I was going to ask Paul some questions on this during our report, but can I ask her now?
Paula, do you want to just kind of go into your report from this?
Yeah, certainly. At this point, a good part of my report is based on the coronavirus anyway, and besides, pretty much half of what I wrote is outdated. As Aaron indicated, things are moving quite quickly, so I'll be happy to answer any questions and cover any other things you guys may not ask. So.
Okay, Walter.
Okay, this is kind of a follow-up on Gil. So I completely support closing down the ramps, but I think that we should have been at the table when these decisions were being made because of such a large impact this is going to have on us, and it does have on people coming here. I was around for the tall ships decision, and that was a decision we made ourselves again. It would have been very nice if we would have been at the table with the cities and the county, and they asked us to close the ramp, because right now it looks as if we just did this unilaterally. And I did listen to the report last night, so I would suggest that we go back to the county and have them add boat ramps onto there, so it looks as if we are complying with an ask from the county and not just acting by ourselves.
I see. Well, did, just to be fair, even though we're not at the table when they put this together, they did provide me a draft copy prior to approving, and we did have a conversation about it. Yeah, but I guess it was not specifically directed to boat ramp, but we did talk about the conversation about closing down areas that would attract the tourists, and I understand.
Yeah, and just it's a courtesy. We are a government agency. We're not a private entity, and we do a lot of business with the city back and forth, and with the county. I just think it would have been nice to have been asked to be at the table.
Understand, but on the other hand, I think independently what the county or the city did at this point, I took upon myself to make that decision because, and I talked to Sarah afterwards, because I felt like, okay, with all these orders coming to us, and how to keep people indoors, I don't think this is the time for people to be out there on recreational boats, and that it's difficult to keep when the city has no places for people to stay, and the city is trying to keep people away from restaurants and supermarkets and things like that. I think we need to do our part as well. So I figure, okay, we got to keep recreation as a non-essential thing closed, and that is a recreational side of our business. We are, in general, as a port, we are considered an essential business because we do provide logistics, and in our case here with our commercial fishing dock, food, because they do bring fish and it's considered farming in a way. We definitely figured that part of the business has to be open, and since we're talking about this, I'm gonna jump right into it. So we ask our employees to keep on working because they are essential workers. I have given the choice for some folks that can work from home to work from home. And also for those that are absolutely terrified about coming to work, because there are some folks like that. Again, we have given the choice of either working from home if they can, or to use PTO, or there is the state also issue some temporary unemployment for folks that cannot work during this time. So we send out some information about that and allow folks to do that. It at this time seems like all of our operations workers are out there doing their job, and we really appreciate that. And they don't really have that much contact with the public and what they do. However, it is very necessary that we have enough people working. So we ask them to, if they can, that they be out there working. However, if they can't, that will put an impact and the other people that are working, because they probably won't be able to be doing overtime to cover everything. And we may have to look into our hours of operations for the services at the commercial dock as well as the international terminal. I did get an email today from Heather Mann asking how are we doing with the international terminal. And I let him know that we will keep operation as usual unless something happened again. As Aaron indicated, somebody could fall sick. We don't know. We hope not, but that is something that could happen. But she said, yes, the Alaska fishermen are coming back now. All the fleet is coming back, and they're going to be busy and getting ready for hake. And I talked to the Port of Toledo. They also are open and operating, and so it kind of goes hand in hand. And we keep listening to what everybody has to say. Where we have 2 calls now with the regional solutions team. That's all the agencies that work with the governor, trying to figure out what's going on there. And I understand Business Oregon is trying to figure out a way to bring some funds because they understand ports are almost similar to other businesses. We lose money and we cannot get through what we need to do, unlike a lot of the agencies that get tax money. So they're trying to figure out solutions to cover that up there. They want to know, how that is affecting each one of the ports. So we need to understand that ourselves because we still don't know at this point. We know to an extent some things are easier to come by, like, losses at the recreational side. However, on the commercial side, some of the services that we're now doing, because again, the Chinese wasn't, buying some products from folks that work for us, how did that affect the work? We don't know yet, so we need to look at that. So there will be some losses for sure. We don't know how long this is going to last. So the longer, obviously, this lasts, the longer the loss, and we don't know how it's going to affect our budget. As we've been working hard on that budget, trying to come up with the projects and everything else we're trying to do. But unfortunately, if we get out of this soon, probably there won't be as much impact. But if it continues for a long period of time, for sure it will be a huge impact. And we are not alone on that. I just had a lot of emails, discussions with other ports today, and they're all dealing with the same problems. And a lot of them had the same closures that we did. So other than that, I don't know if you have any other questions. So I'll be happy to answer.
I'd like to just speak to what Walter was talking about, that probably I'm not 100% sure after hearing your remarks that, I know we were at the table because Paula was attending all of any emails and conference calling and such with the city and the county as far as ramp closures. And, I had a call from a friend who's a 6-month, a year person bringing a boat and such. And is there any place else I could launch to get to my South Beach slip? And as I understood it, and tell me if I'm wrong, Paula, is like there's a ramp way up the Yaquina, Quarry Cove, and some of the boats can be kind of done at Sawyer's Landing. But as I understood it, the county has shut those down. Am I wrong?
I'm not 100% certain, but that's
I can say there is no reference to boat ramps in the county's ordinance, and that was one of the things why I wanted to just say that we should have been at the table, because the Port of Toledo has a boat ramp, the county has one, and what about as Alsea doing their boat ramps? And I'm just saying that way. If we would have, the reason I wanted us to be at the table is so we could get the boat ramps put into that ordinance, into the resolution from the county and the cities, so it doesn't look like the ports are acting by themselves, that we are going along with our the other governments in our county. It has nothing to do with
Right.
It has nothing to do with access. I fully support the closures. I just thought that we should have been at the table to have a word in there.
Yeah, I support them as well. Port of Toledo is staying open at this time for their boat ramp.
Yeah.
So recreational can launch there.
Port of Toledo got commercial stuff going on there. So, and I did talk to Bud about that. And let me just say that that's probably on me because again, Spencer did provide me a copy of it, and he asked if there was anything. I probably could have added that in there, and I didn't. So I take a bit of responsibility on that. I'm sorry?
I mean, I could have prompted you a little bit more also. It was a lot happening all at once on a weekend. And I think the county and the city is not a stone wall. They can certainly understand our position and you know, get that in there or make that clear because we want clear messaging coming from the commissioners certainly that we know everything. So that's still up in the air, and I would like clarification on boat ramps in the area and what the actual policies are.
Right. But anyway, there is a lot going on. I have a lot of emails about this coronavirus from every agency, every people we work with, and I've been like, I have been working from home because, as you know, I just got back from Brazil, and to protect our employees in the office, I quarantined myself here in order to protect folks, and I've been like in conference calls and flooded with emails on this subject, and there's nothing else I'm dealing more than this, and I've been spending hours and hours and hours dealing with it, and yes, there will be few things that will be missed. That's what it comes down to, and my apologies if that's the case, we'll try to stay on top of things as much as we can, but things are changing every single day. It's just a lot of information.
I mean, I think it's not true that we're not at the table. It's just so much material, once again, that not everything is going to be caught on this first round. And the main big important thing was what we saw on the weekend was all these people not following any rules and being on, the demographics of Newport is an older population, and here all these people were, just jamming the doorways of the grocery stores and the beaches, and so that caused not a panic, but a lot of alarm in the city and the county. So it was a quick action, and I'm sure will be remedied in some of the things that have gotten missed. But, it's pretty complicated, and I'm just glad we're all healthy and able to do our job and to help others. So.
Hey, Sarah, I have a comment. This is Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one, I support Paula's quick decisions. These are hard times, and you have to make a decision. So I have no problem with that. I just wanted to share one thing that I've done with my staff. The only staff here at the aquarium right now are animal care personnel, and I'm just going to share this with you. I don't know if you have the staff numbers to do this, but I divided everyone into Team A and Team B, so we have less cross-exposure in case some of the staff gets sick. So what I'm doing right now is people are working 3 10-hour days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and half a day on Wednesday AM. And then the other half of the staff are working Wednesday PM with an hour buffer in between through Saturday for a total of 35 hours. And just trying to separate that. And the whole goal there is not so much financial, although it does save a few dollars, but it's really just to separate staff that are essential that can't work from home. And I'm just sharing that idea. I'll let you guys manage your staff the way you see fit, but this is an idea that a lot of essential personnel places are using at this point, and I just wanted to share that. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah,
We
I
too
appreciate that,
have
Jim.
done that.
Our
we
staff
separate
is quite
for-
small.
Yeah, we're scrapping. I mean, 10-hour days, or there's very little time to take the Bureau of Labor and Industries dictated breaks and lunches, but we're making it happen. But it's just, we're working through it. It's only day 2, so hopefully we can get it to work, and hopefully not too many people get sick. We're averaging a few people out a day, probably 2.5 people out a day over a week's time. And just trying to keep people away from, each team away from each other. And hopefully it works out.
I appreciate you sharing that, and I think that's what every business in town should definitely communicate with each other, good things that we're doing, so.
Anything
Well,
more on
and,
your report, Paul?
And beyond that, I guess the one good news that I was going to share, obviously, is that Commissioner Walter Chuck and I made the trip with the PNWA for the mission to Washington. I think it was a successful conference, and we got to pretty much see every congressman, congresswoman, and senators for Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and we got to talk to some folks and have some clarification or not some things that we want to talk about in regards to mitigation issues with NOAA, and we had meetings with OMB and also with Corps of Engineers, and to emphasize the importance of the work that they do, and the funds, how necessary it is to keep funding the Corps to do all the work they do, especially here in Yaquina Bay. We actually did get a good approval this year for them to do what they need to do, the dredging and all the maintenance. And we had some good speakers that gave us a lot to digest, a lot of information. So I'm sure we're going to be using some of that throughout the year, and then perhaps he will share. Commissioner Chuck will share a bit more about that trip, but I think it was right in the beginning of this whole virus thing. So hopefully neither he or I catch anything while we're there, but I think we're safe so far. There's no symptoms of anything, but and I think that is I wanna thank Mark Brown and Aaron Brett for all the extra work that they're doing during this difficult time, especially the fact that I had to quarantine myself. I really appreciate all the extra work. We are trying to, again, allow some people to work from home. That on itself kept some separation, and I'm not there, and we have very few people in our admin office. But I truly appreciate doing all of these through phone calls and and conference calls in general. It hasn't been easy, but I truly appreciate everybody stepping up and trying to work through this process. Other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments for Paula?
So this is Gil, Paula. So when you were back there, you were with the Pacific Northwest Waterways. So when you were seeing the various offices and our congressional delegation, were you lobbying or educating them broadly, or it consisted with the broad issues of the Waterways Association, or were you also speaking to very specific needs of the Port of Newport while you were back there?
When we met with the Corps of Engineer and the Office of Management and Budget, we actually were able to give a little bit of spill on who we are and what we do and why it's important to keep funding, the funding this way. And there were not specifics, but in general, our needs for the area here. And other than that, each one of the legislators came and spoke, and there were some specific questions regarding navigation and other needs that the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association focus on, and a lot of them is in regard to navigation, core, and things like that.
Okay, so primarily lobbying in support of these broader issues and not lobbying or educating or discussing particulars. That's what I'm hearing from you. So, okay.
Other than when we had specific meetings with the two agencies, then we did get a little more specific about what we do and our needs.
Okay. All right, but not a very tightly stated request of something that was very precise. Having been back there numerous times in my work, that's usually making an ask very clear is always something critical to make sure that the folks you're meeting with know exactly what you're asking for.
A lot of the things that we don't have any specifics right now because we don't have anything in our budget that we're looking. I mean, there are lots of projects, but remember we're working through plans and things like that right now. But we did thank, for instance, some of the legislators about the EDA grant that we received and the importance of it. And what happened is when we have some specific asks, then we definitely put that on our agenda and make sure that that's included. And then at that point, we go to each one of those offices for our legislators here and meet with them and emphasize the importance of that project. In this particular time, we have been working a lot with the Corps of Engineers and some of the projects that Aaron has been talking about it. But those are navigation, and again, it goes back to we talked to them about some specific projects that we're doing. But then again, these people are listening to a lot of other ports too. It wasn't a huge crowd, but there was a fair amount of ports. But each one got a chance to talk about what they're doing, why it's important. And we did emphasize some of the areas that the Corps has been working with us, but we didn't have any specific asks because we just don't have that right now. But give another year, at least those people now know us. It's also important for them to get to know you, get to know your port. So when you go again and they have a specific ask, they know who you are. They know what your needs are. And then you can tell, okay, now we're working on this specific project. So that's why it's important to continue doing this.
That's right. Okay. Yes. Great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Paula?
I do not have any.
Okay. None other heard. I think thank you again for really tough times on keeping abreast of the changes in people's questions. And I think the staff is up and running on being able to answer these questions, and we'll learn more as, you can pass down stuff from Aaron and Mark. And also that that people are being very one other thing that we're going to be doing is having Angela put out more information on social media
making it clear what these changes are with the port, I think you were saying.
Yeah. I've been working with Angela on a regular basis here, especially about updates on the COVID-19. One thing, talking about Angela, one thing you may have received in your mailbox is the newsletter. And if you haven't, Angela's going to be adding that to our website and our Facebook as well. That's out. So far, we got some good comments about those. People are really happy that we started doing that. And by any means, any one of you that has any questions about what's going on and you need to talk to me, or if you don't like something that we're doing, please give me a call. Feel free to and call me on my work cell at this point until I'm back. I'm hoping to be back in the office on Monday. I think that will be just about 2 weeks since I was gone, and I should be safe. But meanwhile, call me on my cell and feel free to give me any updates that you know of that I may not know, or your own peace of mind if you feel like we need to do something different.
Sounds good. So, any commissioner reports or comments? None heard? Yeah, Walter?
Yeah, this is Walter. I just wanted to kind of expand on what, I went to D.C. with Paul.
Yeah.
It was a good, so it was a good time. We did reach out. We got to meet with all 6 of the senators, 5 of the senators, and 1 aide for one of the fellows from Idaho. Basically 15 of the 17 representatives for the 3 states. So that was good. And, we just had a half an hour with them each time. So we weren't allowed to, give them ask a lot of questions, but we did have a script of things that you could talk to your representative to that were basically germane to your area. So with Kurt Schrader, I talked about mitigation and how that's changing now with ESA and slopes. We did have a talk from NOAA, Kathy Tortorici. Her answers were not weren't very direct. I think that we have to work on that because the cost for mitigation on upcoming projects is going to be a large part of it. And if we can get some clear guidance on what's required beforehand and not basically give them something and have them handle it on a case-by-case basis, because there can be a lot of ambiguity in the mitigation needs. I would say that the representatives and the senators were not on the top of their game because this is right when the corona issue was starting to hit the fan, and they were not focused on it. A couple of them had to leave early to go back and make votes. So it's very necessary that we go back there and do that, and that they see us back there. And when we do have an ask, even when we don't, because we did, like Paula said, we did lobby for harbor maintenance tax to be fully utilized, continue dredging, the importance of dredging. The lady at OMB had never been out to Oregon, and so we asked her to come out. She'd been to Seattle, I think, but we said, you need to come to Oregon and see the impact of some of your projects. So it is important for these people to see a face, and like I said, it was very worthwhile. And then there's a reception. It's called Taste of the Pacific Northwest. We brought Rogue beer, but there was crab, shrimp, tuna, salmon, potatoes from Idaho, cheese, all kinds of things. And I was talking to some of the aides in there for some of the offices, and I said, how good is this one? And then one of the fellows said, hey, usually the aides only have 15 minutes to do stuff, and some have been here for over an hour, so that'll let you know. And they said it's one of the top 5 that they do all year. So pat on our back for the Pacific Northwest, and Rogue beer from us, and then whatever else came from Port of Newport. But it was good to see that, and especially from some of the staffers who are from Oregon or Washington, and they said it's nice to see a taste of home. So there's my report.
Well, thank you. It puts a face on it for us who couldn't go. But it's good to be seen, and certainly we'll keep doing that. And we're to calendars of future considerations, and the only thing I can say for sure in future considerations is that we have planned to have a 5 o'clock general manager evaluation executive session on April 28th before the regular commission meeting at 6. And the budget committee is going to be switching more to May for their first meetings, and the rest of it, we don't know what's going to happen. I hope there's still a loyalty days, but that is yet to be discovered. So that brings us to public comment. Any public comments on any of this?
Hi, this is Dietmar.
Hi.
Hi. I just want to say most of the time I enjoy being a counselor, but last night was not one of those nights. It was a tough decision we had to make for the safety of the community. And I know you guys were talking about not being at the table, but it was a tough table, let me tell you.
I bet.
But I think the governor's direction was that all essential services, anything not essential, be closed down. And I kind of see that ramp as a non-essential. I mean, not as a non-essential service. It mostly services tourists. So what you did, I think, is the right thing.
Yeah, it's more of a magnet than essential.
That's how I look at it too, Dietmar.
Yeah, and it was from the governor's office. That was pretty clear. And, you know, that's where we can support each other, Dietmar. You know, the county, the city, and the port will remain good partners through all of this because we know that a strong local economy is what we all need, and we can help you in your tough times and vice versa, and continue to make Newport a great place to be.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think the port's essential part of the Newport infrastructure and the county infrastructure. And the meeting was held with all the county commissioners and all the cities, including Gillette and Toledo, were at the table, and the other small towns and up and down the coast in Lincoln County. And I think everybody expressed the toughness of this decision. But everybody expressed the paramount concern was the safety of our people, and work out the economics and the money at some later date.
Right. So we'll live to work another day and just keep our head above water and move forward together is the most important thing, and to care mostly about the fact that those of us that are healthy and that we can help those that aren't. And I think that we will continue to work well together. So much appreciated your hard fought evening. So that brings us, and thank you for that comment. Any other public comment? Nothing heard, or was that something I heard? I guess not, just some feedback on the phone. Thanks for living through, I've never run a meeting by this phone. It's nice spending time with you. I wish it was in person, and I am going to adjourn this meeting at 7:49 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.